So Jonathan Twomley and I had been talking about the impending pain coming in the commercial market for quite a while. You probably can go back and see our initial conversations a year or perhaps 18 months ago. We are undoubtedly seeing the initial pain come. Jonathan had a great event in Vegas. I think it was 2 weeks ago. And I've had a lot of chance to think about this and understand and talk to other lenders. And I just want to share with Jonathan what I think now and see if he agrees, disagrees, or let him ask questions. So, Jonathan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, you and I have been talking about this for a long time, and it's here, or at least it started. I now believe the opportunity is bigger than I expected, and perhaps multiple times bigger. But I also think it's going to take longer. So it won't be this kind of watershed moment or even, like a year of opportunity. It's probably multiple years because you're going to get some extend and pretend. You're going to get some, people trying different things. And um, so, yeah, that's what I think. I think it's going to be bigger than I thought might be across more asset classes, but I also think it will be longer.
But slower,
Uh,
you mean?
but
Kind of,
slower. Yeah, maybe
yeah.
slower is a better word. Slower. So that's what I'm
S-
thinking. What
So,
about all that?
I mean, it's an interesting thought. I definitely think that so the banks have learned something from the great financial crisis.
Correct.
I mean, seems like they forgot some other lessons if you look at like what's going on. You know, they decided they don't have to hedge anything. I mean,
Yeah.
there's kind of some dumb things that they
Yeah.
did.
Borrow short, lend long. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and not hedge those bets. And
Yes.
even after they knew that this was all coming, I don't know, they just bought into the whole like interest rates aren't going up thing, even after the Fed was like, hey, we're raising rates. Yeah, no, we really
Yeah.
mean it. No,
Did you
we
not
really,
watch
really mean
Jackson
it.
Hole? He was 8 minutes. You could watch it a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, like so gosh. Okay. So but I think, what is they know from the last time around how like dangerous a bunch of like toxic assets can be to their
Yeah.
survival.
They're not
And
going to rush this like last time.
yeah, I think this is going to be a slow and deliberate process of figuring out how to, you know, how to foreclose on assets that they need to foreclose on in an orderly way, how to sell them off as quickly as possible and as
Mhm.
quietly as possible in an orderly
Yes.
way so that they don't, cause a crash in the market. And I think, obviously the banks that are really exposed um, to office in particular are going to be the ones that
Yeah, let's
really
let's poke
initially,
at office a little bit because
yeah,
again, we've talked about on my channel 36% vacancy in San Francisco and
yeah,
going higher, New York, downtown kind of problems. I actually one thing I'm currently thinking about, and this could be completely wrong. So they're likely community banks that are very office heavy,
yeah,
and they know that's a problem. But they also probably have loans to other operators and other segments. What I am now thinking, based on your meeting and just playing with it or your event, um, I think it's a chance that they'll extend and pretend on office because there's no price discovery or the bottom is
mm,
so far away, but they'll call loans on other operators to raise
yeah, to
cash.
shore up their balance sheets. Yeah, I mean, I think that could wind up happening, and it's an
Wow.
interesting,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting it's not the way that people thought the crash would happen, right? Like,
Exactly.
right, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
and I guess it really never is. I think that's like the lesson of history, that the crash never happens the way you expect it to happen, because what everybody always expects is for it to happen like the last one, right? And so then there's a lot of effort made to make sure the last one doesn't happen again. But then it's kind of like somebody made an analogy about something else. I don't remember what it was. It was about something else, but the analogy still works. It's kind of like when you're squeezing like a balloon full of water, you
Yeah.
know, and like you squeeze on one part, but it pops out
Yeah.
another part. I think that's kind of how the financial system works when banks are greedy, and so they shore up, they make sure that like, well, hey, we're not going to we're not going to take it on the chin again from like single family houses. We're going to make it
Right.
much harder to borrow, and we're not going to take it on the chin again for multifamily. We're going to make it harder to borrow. But then this whole office thing comes out of left
Yeah.
field, which nobody expected, and now they may have to then go back to those multifamily owners who
Yeah.
did all the right things and
That's exactly what I think is coming.
are fully capitalized and et cetera, and say, oh yeah, that loan that's coming due, we need the money back.
We need the cash.
Yeah, we need the money back. So
Yeah. That's what I think is
go
coming. It's gonna
go
be
refinance
wild.
from someone else. Now here's the thing though, that this is the wild card, that like, how do we figure this out? Like, or how is it going to play out? If the banks still have a problem though, right? Because if they foreclose on those multifamily assets, right, there still has to be some other buyer out there who can get loans to finance the new purchase, right?
Correct.
And if all those banks are in the same position, all those community banks, because they are overexposed to office, or they're overexposed to multifamily, or who knows what they're overexposed to, if they're all in the same situation, then they obviously can't lend the money. So is it all going to basically go back to like Freddie and Fannie? Are they going to be the only ones lending on this
Well,
stuff?
well, I think that's one of the outcomes. I think the unfortunate thing of this again is you're a multifamily guy or girl. You're at a community bank who's heavy in office. They tap you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I know you've done right by me, blah blah blah, but I need the cash. Go refi somewhere else." And then they can't. It's kind of where you are in the story.
Yeah.
I think there's only two options. And again, you got to remember, these lenders, they don't give a rat's ass about the equity. They don't care. So you could do a cash in refi, because there is at some point a bank will do the loan, right? 50% LTV, something. So you could do a cash in refi, go to your investor, say, hey, sorry, I need some money, blah, blah, blah. Or you're going to have to sell the building.
Yeah.
And again, the bank doesn't care, because they're going to get their money at 65 or 60% LTV, but your equity is going to get hurt in a fire sale.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is going to be wild. Again, office is such a disaster that I really do think the banks will just push that off, buy a year, survive to 25. But that's going to mean they call loans elsewhere in performing assets. And that could really hurt LPs, I think.
Yeah. Or, they're going to go and sock it to the depositors, right? And start jacking up fees like crazy on everything that you do, right, in the banks. And
but I think that has a limited window, because you're seeing right now there's $100 billion and probably more at this point left the banking system for money markets and gold bars and crypto or whatever it is.
And Apple paying 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's again that sort of like squeezing the water balloon. I think that at least for multifamily assets that are over $1 million, right? And the debt is over $1 million.
The debt's over $1 million. Yeah.
Right now, so one of the things that we heard at our conference from the debt guys on the panel that I did was that Fannie and Freddie are way, way, way below their allocation this year. So they have a lot of money available to lend, right? They haven't been lending it out because sellers just stopped putting their property on the market because they knew that they weren't going to get the prices they wanted. So a lot of people are just holding out. But I think, if you start to see foreclosures, if you start to see forced sales, all those people who are qualified are going to be going to Fannie and Freddie for their debt. Now, again, just like you said, they may be doing cash in refis on those if they haven't built up enough of an equity cushion in the intervening time. And if they've got a 5-year note now that's coming to maturity, that means they were in 2018. So they might be okay. I mean, their valuation may be lower, but they still may be able to refinance without making a capital call or with a small.
It'll be close.
Call. Yeah, for some of those people. But I think the closer you get, when you get to 2019, 2020 debt, right?
Yes, exactly where I'm thinking. Yes.
I mean, if you have a 10-year note from 2013, you're golden. You're fine. No problem. And if you have a 7-year note from 2016, you're probably okay. It's really when you're getting into those 5-year notes. And then the scary ones are kind of like the 3-year bridge debt.
Yeah, the 2 and 3 year bridge. That's where my brain went. It's like the people that piled in late that had to beat up their spreadsheet, had to get IO. It's like, oh, this is going to be ugly.
Yeah, some of that's going to be ugly. But I mean, again, it's sort of, you wonder what's going to happen with some of those bridge lenders too. I mean, they might not necessarily have to call the debt. There might be some extend and pretend with the bridge lenders too.
It could be.
And the other thing too is I learned something interesting in when we didn't talk about this when we talked about the debt because I forgot about it in the last segment, but I did learn something very interesting in having some of these discussions about debt, which was, well, sometimes, the interest rates are actually a lot better than you expect. Why is that? And the reason for that is because these are not lenders dealing with the spread with the treasury, right?
Ah,
They're not borrowing from the Fed to lend to you and bake in a spread and then sell the note to somebody else, right? They actually have balance sheet funds. They could have raised this capital themselves years
yep,
ago, so
yep.
their cost of capital was lower, right? So there actually are lenders out there that can lend at more competitive rates
Hmm.
because of their structure of capital. They're not borrowing to lend, right? So, but the issue is from all of those loan originators who are borrowing to lend, right?
Yeah.
That's why interest and a lot, a huge segment of the industry does that, but
Mhm.
a lot
Not
of the
all.
not all,
Yeah.
but a lot of the community banks apparently aren't doing it because they're doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
They're
Balance sheet.
they
Yeah.
borrow it from their depositors and they
Yep.
lend it to you, and right, and if they're still paying their depositors like 1%, right,
It's a
they
huge
don't
spread.
have to
Yeah.
lend to you at 8, right? So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what I would tell people listening to this is I think the opportunity will be massive. I think a lot of people are expecting it to be an office. In my spidey senses say if everybody thinks that, that's not where it's going to be. Um, but also I think it'll be slower. I think slower is the
Yeah.
right word, not longer. But yeah, there'll be opportunities all the way out to 2025, 2026. So as we talked about in video one, network, grow, figure out what you want, tell everybody your buy box, become a known quantity, and good luck with that. So Jonathan, any closing thoughts on this?
Well, um, I mean, I agree with you pretty much about everything that you said. I do, it's funny. I was thinking about the office market yesterday when I was out for my walk, and one of the things that occurred to me, and this is also sort of like it, put this into like the slow motion bucket as well, but there is going to be a lot of conversion of these
Yes,
assets, right?
for sure.
And I wonder how the banks will play that, right? Typically, you would think, well, they're going to foreclose, somebody's going to buy it at a fire sale price, and then they're going to convert it, and then the original borrower, they'll be the ones who are
Yeah.
in a hole, but and the banks are going to take a haircut, but it doesn't necessarily have to
Yeah,
work
it
that
doesn't
way,
have to go that
right?
way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be a structured kind of transaction where the bank is like, okay, we're going to see this through to a
Yeah,
conversion.
they have the ability to turn it into a construction loan with, hurdle rates and all of that
Yeah,
and just change the debt structure.
yeah, and I think long term, what's interesting too is that, I mean, just thinking about, I don't know about San Francisco, but someplace like New York has proven over the last couple of years that people want to live here, right? Sort of regardless of where they are working, right? Whether
Yeah.
their office is 2 blocks away or whether, as happened to my surprise, there were people who moved, like their work from home during COVID was in New York City, right? They were like, I'm getting out of Dallas. I'm
Right.
going to go to New York, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm shocked that happened, but it actually did. And so if people are kind of like location independent from work,
Yeah.
that doesn't that doesn't mean that they're all moving to like the low cost places, right? They're
Agreed.
moving to where they want to be. And that could be the middle of the country. That could
Could be.
be, that could be on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Yeah.
So I
It's
think that,
probably not San Francisco, just to answer that
well,
question.
at least right now it's not, but who knows
Yeah.
where, that
Yeah.
can change
Yeah.
too.
That could
So,
change.
but here's the thing. You wind up with like a lot of modern cities are based on this kind of like donut idea where you've got a
Mhm.
bunch of offices in the middle, and then like at nighttime it goes dark because everybody leaves. And it's not, and nobody's ever thought that this was healthy, right? But it just sort of evolved that way, right?
Mhm.
Now I think there's the opportunity to make a lot of city
Yeah.
downtowns, not just in New York, but like throughout America. And maybe even this is more important in small towns where you're going to start having more people living downtown in these offices, and there's more mixed
Agreed.
use going on, which is better for the local businesses. They're not all dependent on, say, like lunch business. They might have lunch and dinner business. It's just having that kind
Exactly.
of mixed economy is actually much better, and it's safer because then you don't have these abandoned areas that you can't walk around in the middle of the night because there's nobody there. So I think short term, there's going to be a lot of pain, but long term, this actually may wind up being better for everyone.
I agree. I agree. Well, Jonathan, thank you very, very much for being a part of this. Again, your event in Vegas was one to see. I think you're doing the next one sometime in what, 24, 25?
Well, yeah, 2024, we're going to do the next one probably in the fall of 2024. But obviously on this channel, we'll be talking about it, and we'll be giving you a lot more lead time this time to get involved and, you know, get tickets and get out there. So
there you go. Well, thank you for all you do, man. Take care of yourself.
thank you. Thanks, Mike.